GradeAUnderA has been making videos again. Well, what's interesting is that GradeAUnderA made all of these videos and didn't put them out, and now he's releasing them every so often. So he spent a long time just making these and not putting them out, and then he decided to release them like a season of a TV show. Because he was gone for years, and now he's back. I remember when he was first coming up thinking he was really funny, and being very impressed by his growth, because he got from maybe 100,000 to 500,000 subscribers in a single week. And then the next week he was at 1 million, which is incredible growth. Incredible growth. Especially for somebody who does Microsoft Paint drawings as a slideshow, and that's what counts as animation. But I'm interested in seeing this video because I don't really know what the tone of this video is going to be. I know that he used to attack vegan gains, and those were some pretty weak attacks that he threw at vegan gains, because anytime somebody tried to attack vegan gains, they were always wrong. Because say what you want about vegan gains, I mean, he was a sociopath, but he was right about pretty much, most of what he said. And so people would try to attack him, and they would use a bunch of ad hominem and basically argue from a normative perspective. And he would be like, what is this weak sauce shit? Why are you throwing this at me? Come up with something actually substantive. And that's exactly the sort of thing that Grade A did and that everyone did. I think the only person who still does it is Isaac Butterfield. Because Vegan Gains is just no longer what he used to be. He's a shell of the man he used to be. And so that's what I remember about Grade A in regards to veganism. But I'm curious about what he has to say now, because the thing about Grade A is that his videos are facetious. He doesn't mean everything that he says. A lot of the things that he says are for comedy. He'll make a point that's intentionally stupid, and he knows it's stupid, but he'll say it anyway because it sounds funny. But then he'll also make points that are not stupid and not intended to be stupid. And he'll mix those in. And so you never really know what his actual thoughts sincerely are on a topic, because he makes these videos for comedy and for entertainment. And so you gotta understand, when you're going into a Grade A video, you don't take it entirely seriously. But you do, respond appropriately. So let me just see what he has to say about this.
Animals! We all love animals, mate, and no one loves them as much as vegans. Except maybe zoophars. But listen, all vegans want to do is that...
The thing is, I hate the stereotype that vegans love animals, because I think it reduces the impeccable logic of veganism down to mere emotions, down to mere preference. That, I prefer animals, I like animals, therefore I'm nice to them. And I think that's a very cruel way to look at the world, that you should only be nice to those people who you happen to have an affinity for. You should only treat people with basic respect to their rights if you happen to like them. I think that it says a lot about the meat eater perspective when they put out this sort of stereotype that vegans love animals. I don't think I love animals any more than anyone else. And I think most people who eat meat are absolute hypocrites, who love animals and don't want to see harm come to them, except when it's convenient for them. then they're willing to do any number of abhorrent cruelties on animals, and they don't care.
And the suffering of animals, right? Yet somehow they're almost universally hated. Not gonna lie, right? That's actually kind of impressive. Now how the fuck?
Hey, look, we can lay the blame wherever we want. You know, a non-vegan can lay the blame on vegans for making themselves hated. And vegans can lay the blame on non-vegans for hating them unnecessarily. I'd say that it's a little bit of both. It's a little bit of both. But I mostly lay the blame on the non-vegans. Because, I think that they like looking for vegans to hate. That's the thing. They like seeking out the ones that they don't like, so that they can feel comfortable not being vegan and not listening to the vegan message. Because they can say, well, I don't like this person, so I'm not going to listen to them. So it's very convenient for them. A lot of the agency is on them.
You do that, mate. But as annoying as they are, right, I think I found some mistakes that vegans have been doing. And also, right, there's a few things about veganism that I don't understand. So to better understand the vegan cult a little better, right, I have a few questions, mate. So I'll present to you, right, part 1 of questions I've always wanted to ask a vegan. But I can't, because they're a little bit scary. Let's go. Oh, listen, here's the thing, right? I don't 100% fully understand what you can and can't do as a vegan. Now, listen, I get the whole thing about eating fruits and vegetables is fine, but...
Yeah. There's no hard and fast rules about what you can and can't do as a vegan. I mean, I'm a good example of that because, I'm still ideologically vegan, but I'm not dietary vegan right now. Although I do plan on recommitting to it soon. Relatively soon. Within the year. Yeah, I mean, that goes to show that there's a lot of variation in approach. But generally, it's about abnormalizing the eating and the buying of animal products. Abnormalizing. So taking something that was normal and using whatever social influence you have to attempt to make it abnormal. That's the basic idea there.
Eating meat is unethical, right? Because animals have to die to give us meat, obviously. But why can't you have eggs and milk? Like me, cows and chickens don't die to make eggs and milk, right? Like they just pop out eggs and milk as part of being alive. So why not have some? Because eggs and milk come from factory farms, which are cruel, Grade. And by eating them, you're contributing to like, yeah, I get that, right? But what if you had cows and chickens yourself, right? And you were nice to them? Like, let's say you're an animal lover, right? And you got lots of land, right? And you decide to buy some chickens and cows. And you love them and you cherish them like you're fucking Mary Poppins or something, right? Oh my God, you spend all day hugging them and kissing them and singing songs to them and providing them with everything.
This is what everyone says, but the same people who say this shit don't do this. That's the weird thing, is that they'll say this as if it's like a good argument against veganism, and then they won't actually live this lifestyle. They'll just continue eating their bought produce, their factory farm goods, or sometimes they'll go to organic farms, sure. But even so, like even on organic farms, a lot of abuse happens. When you commodify animals, it's going to result in abuse, even if it's not as extreme as the kind of abuse you get on factory farms. There's still a lot of abuse on organic farms and neglect. So, yeah, it never makes any sense when they say this kind of thing, because they don't actually do this. So why are they even bringing it up? But generally, the idea is to abnormalize this behavior. And so if you are participating in it on this level, on the very, very sort of non-commodified level, then it's definitely less egregious, and it's definitely, I wouldn't really care so much about it. But on some level, it is still maintaining this sense of the normalcy of consuming animal products. And I don't know how harmful that is to the vegan message, but it's something to think about.
They need to have the best life, right? And in doing so, oh, look at that, mate. I'll pop a few eggs, right? And I'll squirt some milk into a conveniently placed bottle. So why can't you have those? Now, why is there no such a thing as vegan milk and vegan eggs? Do you know what I mean? Because, mate, that is $1 billion idea, is it not? And God knows you skinny as fuck.
Yeah, it would cost $1 billion fucking dollars because it would be an unsustainable business model. That's the problem.
Vegans could do with the protein, do you know what I mean? Jesus Christ! Like, the definition of veganism by the Vegan Society says veganism aims to exclude all forms of exploitation of and cruelty to animals, right? And these eggs and milk were gotten with zero.
But you also have to think about where are you getting these animals from, because that matters too. If you're buying chickens from a place that sells chickens, then they're commodifying animals on a large scale, and they are killing male chickens because you don't need as many male chickens as female chickens, because only the female chickens will lay eggs. And the same issues apply to dairy cows. Only female cows produce milk. So you also have that issue going on, which never gets addressed by these people. They never seem to think about where the fucking animals come from. They just have this sort of magical idea that, oh yeah, we can have these like totally sustainable dairy and egg farms where the animals are treated really well. And it's like, how? Explain to me how that happens.
No exploitation or cruelty to animals. None of that, right? Just hugs and kisses. So if vegans love and cherish their own cows and chickens, right, can't they enjoy a nice egg omelette with a tall glass of milk?
You can do whatever you want as a vegan. You can be a vegan and go to McDonald's and eat a fucking Big Mac for all I care. I'm definitely not one of these vegans who has some religious idea about, like, specific principles you're supposed to follow, specific actions, things you are and aren't allowed to do as a vegan, or else you can't call yourself a vegan. Like, I don't care about whether people think I'm a vegan or not. I clearly don't. Because, I mean, look at me, I don't care. It's just a word. But I think what matters is the message. And what matters is that at some point you got to put your money where your mouth is, and you got to live what you're preaching. Now, I happen to not be doing that right now, but I want to do that again soon. It's just a matter of I could do it now, but I'm going to be traveling soon, and so I don't feel that it's necessary to recommit exactly at this moment, because it's kind of a pain to eat vegan when you're traveling, I guess. But yeah.
No animal products allowed, Grade, even if the animals had nothing but love, because because we can't have anything that comes from an animal, period. Vegan logic. Really? Shit.
And the problem with getting really dogmatic about this is that it puts you into these sort of logical traps. Because when you're trying to nitpick veganism, it's easy to find these little gotchas. Like, oh, what about this? What about this? What about the vitamin D3 that they put in your Cheerios? That's animal derived. So at a certain point, you just gotta be like, I don't give a fuck. My message resounds whether I'm to the letter following exactly the vegan creed 100%. This is the message that I'm trying to get across, and I'm trying to get it across with my behavior as well as with my words.
Okay, mate, that leads me to another question. Okay, so I get that I can't eat an animal because that means I'd have to kill it, right? Which is suffering. And I can't have eggs or milk either that come from an animal, obviously. Could that be exploiting an animal? Somehow. I don't know, right? But what if I had no involvement with the animal at all? Now, say I'm walking along and I see a cow, right? And oh my God, it drops dead right there and then. Lucky me. I mean... oh no! How sad!
Well, yeah, this is what Gary Yourofsky said. Gary Yourofsky, one of the biggest, most important vegan activists in the world, made the point that that there was one time when he was in a car with some friends and they ran into a deer, and they buried the deer because they're like that, I guess. And then they were chilling afterwards, and Gary said to his friends, you know, we could have eaten that deer. And they were like, what? And he was like, no, I'm serious. Like, the deer died on accident. It lived its life in freedom. We weren't trying to exploit that deer or do harm on it. And it died, and it was fresh. We could have eaten it, and it wouldn't have been a moral failing on our part. So even vegans acknowledge this. Even hardcore vegans like Gary Yourofsky acknowledge this. It's really not a big deal.
Or exploit it in any way. So since it's not breaking the two major rules of veganism, right? Can I pop it on the grill and have some burgers with the boys? No! Just because it's dead doesn't mean...
Well, yeah, you can in isolation. That would be like a totally okay thing to do. But the thing is, there's Roadkill Cookout Festival in West Virginia. West Virginia was a mistake. The problem with this, though, is that the more you participate in the eating of animals, the more you are going against the mission of abnormalizing that practice. So, in other words, you are normalizing it, which it doesn't need to be normalized because it's already normal, but you are contributing to it not being abnormalized. And so, it still doesn't make me quite comfortable to just be like, oh yeah, let's eat these animals. Because you're basically, you know, the whole idea of being vegan is to say we don't have to eat animals. And if we don't have to eat animals, if we can prove that we don't have to eat animals, then there's very little justification for continuing to exploit them in the way we do. So it's a little bit of a gray area when an animal who wasn't a victim of exploitation is eaten. You know, obviously, I mean, once the animal is dead, it doesn't really matter what you do to it on a personal level. That animal lived its life, and whatever happened to it, happened to it. And so it doesn't really make sense either way. And so it's kind of a tricky question, I think, this one. And when it comes to tricky questions, I don't really like those in morality. I tend to like just ignoring them, because when it becomes so tricky, it becomes subjective enough that you can really make an argument for either side. And in that case, it's like, who cares?
And you can now exploit it, you prick! What? Okay, what if I don't eat it, right? Maybe I'm just cold and I want its coat. Now! Okay, what if I just want, like, a tooth to make a pretty necklace? Now, Grade! No using dead animal, right? For any reason at all. Okay, fine. What about a nice leather sofa? Now, Grade! Just checking. And a quick question for any vegans who are religious, right? If God wanted us to be vegan, why is it that I cry when I cut into an onion, but not a chicken? Because if God wanted me to be a vegan, right, surely he'd make me cry every time I cut into flesh and meat. But no, he makes me cry when I cut into an onion, a vegetable. Checkmate, vegans. But another question, right, can we...
It's very difficult. It's very difficult to actually kill a chicken. You have to kind of harden yourself against the idea that a chicken has any kind of humanity in it. Has any kind of experience of life that you can identify with as a human being. Killing an animal is not really very easy. I think shooting an animal can be pretty easy because you don't actually have to mar its flesh physically with your hands and get your hands bloody. Just like shooting a human being is easier than stabbing a human being, but it's really not easy to cut a chicken that's alive. It's a lot easier to cut a chicken carcass. And even then, that's not very pleasant. So I wouldn't agree with Grade A's opinion at all there. What are your thoughts on fishing and hunting? Well, the thing about that is that nature is extremely horrible. And so I have a very defeatist mindset when it comes to that. I really liked Gary Yorovsky's comment. The circle of life is bullshit. And I really like that comment because I think it cuts through this way that we sort of justify to ourselves cruelty by saying it's the circle of life, as if that just excuses everything. But what you're really talking about when you talk about the circle of life is a system of abhorrent cruelty. And so what you're saying when you justify something on the grounds that it's the circle of life is that you want to live in a world where it is normal and okay to commit acts of abhorrent cruelty all the time. And so the circle of life is bullshit. And I also liked the comment that he gave when somebody asked him, what about the lions in the savannah? And he said, you know, once I've finished convincing humankind to go vegan, then I'll get around to talking to the lions. But until then, I think we can let the lions do their thing, and I'll focus on humans. And then once we've solved veganism on the human level, we can start talking to the lions about their diet. I found that a really a good answer, I think, to that question. But when it comes to hunting and fishing, I don't care. Personally. I wouldn't do it because I still dislike, I really dislike the act of harming someone who wasn't harming you. I just find that really unnecessary, and I wouldn't want to be the victim of that kind of violence. So I don't like it. But at the same time, I can't really condemn it. What are your thoughts on the Twitter account called Femboy Fishing? I guess I have to look it up, because now I want to see what this person looks like. I have to see how attractive this femboy is. Some Hatsune Miku cosplay. I'm not really seeing a lot of pictures of him. Not a lot of face pics. Okay, no, this person is attractive. Yeah, no, I see it. Yeah, I totally see it. Yeah, okay. 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 Yeah. Yeah, he's a particularly cute femboy. I am semi-erect now.
Vegans eat mushrooms. Now listen, I know you might hear that and think that's a stupid question, right? But apparently, according to science, mushrooms are genetically closer to humans than they are plants. So if we go by that logic, right, doesn't that mean that if you eat mushroom, you're closer to being a cannibal? Then
Yeah, it does.
you are a vegan.
No,
Disgusting.
no, not than you are a vegan. It means you're closer to being a cannibal than you would be if you were someone who only ate plants. But being vegan doesn't mean you only eat plants. It just means you don't eat animals.
Call yourself a vegan, cannibal? Listen, so if you ever see a vegan eating a mushroom, right, you smack him in the face and make sure you turn the tables on him, right? And lecture him on the inhumane food choices he's making. Fake vegan cunt. And that's the video. Listen, I've got more questions for vegans, right? Enough for 3 other videos, right? But I'll upload those another time. Let me know what you find the most annoying about vegans in the comments below, and maybe I'll make a part 5, mate. Until then, right, go watch some more videos in it.
So he's already got 3 other parts lined up. So there's more coming in the future. This person says, never understood why they don't eat honey. It's entirely possible to produce honey without making the bees suffer at all. I mean, the honey industry, it feeds bees sugar water, basically. Like, it feeds bees basically what you put in hummingbird feeders to attract hummingbirds. It's not nutritious food. Bees are supposed to eat nectar from plants, which have the nutrients that they need. They're not supposed to eat just corn syrup that's watered down. But that's essentially, they just spray mists of corn syrup, watery corn syrup, into these beehives to feed them. Because normally they would be eating their own honey. You know, because they eat the nectar from plants and then they turn the rest of it into honey, and then they eat that as they go, and they feed it to their larvae. But because the people are stealing the honey, then they have to feed them this fake food. Which, I mean, they probably eat some, they're definitely eating some actual plant food, so it's not too terrible, but it's not really good for them. And I've heard that it contributes to what's called colony collapse disorder. And there's a whole bunch of problems with both commercial pollination, which is a totally different industry from honey. Both of them have issues, because with commercial pollination, another problem you have is that they get rid of the natural pollinators who are diverse and have different properties, and then they kind of have this mono pollinator, the honeybee, which, you know, it can do the job, but not as well as all of the different pollinators together. But when it comes to honey, I mean, I don't know. I don't know if I care so much about honey. It's considered non-vegan, but it doesn't seem to me to be a really important issue in veganism. This person says, I work on a poultry farm, and though you addressed it in your video that factory farms are cruel, I don't think most people understand how cruel they are. And a lot of people do end up not eating meat as a result of working in it. The environment is very, very dirty, crowded, smelly, hot, and dark. The birds are also overfed and are bred to be as meaty as possible, resulting in their legs being weak and not being able to hold the body up properly. They also have very weak hearts and other organs, which results in very frequent deaths. Culling for minor inconveniences is also very common due to the resources going into treating a singular chicken isn't beneficial enough compared to just getting rid of it. And this is something that should be obvious to all these meat eaters, that, you know, when vegans say this shit, they're not just making it up. It's real, but people just don't want to hear it for some reason, or they'll make excuses for it, and like that can only last so long. I think eventually this culture is going to get over this weird resistance that it has to the vegan message. But you know, it's like when you listen to it and you're not just trying to defend your own habits, you don't come out on the other side thinking that eating meat is a-okay. When you actually listen to the vegan message properly, you know, when you pay the fuck attention to what's really going on, you don't come out of that thinking that oh yeah, this status quo can just keep going and going. And even non-vegans, a lot of them understand that, but they, for whatever reason, don't see the necessity in changing their own behavior. And there's a lot of, I think there's a lot of sort of biases that result in that as well. Turkey farm near where I grew up used bolt guns. Poultry processing plants are also incredibly exploitative towards their workforce. Terrible conditions. Yeah, and that then descends down to the level of the animals. For instance, when it comes to sheep, the way they're processed, these people are forced to shear like 200 sheep in a day. In the old days, it would take a whole day to shear your flock of maybe 20 sheep. These guys are trying to do 10 times that amount of labor in a day. Now they have modern equipment for it. They have electric shears, but they still can't do it. So they're forced to do a job that they physically cannot do unless they abuse the sheep beyond any reasonable parameters. And this inevitably inculcates a severe hatred of sheep in these shearers, which makes them even more abusive to the sheep, because the sheep are so resistant to them because they're already abusive to them because they need to get these sheep sheared, and they're, you know, you can't just shear a sheep willy-nilly, you got to work with it. And then that resistance makes them abuse them even more and makes them actually have a pathological hatred for the sheep on an emotional level that's very, very extreme. You wouldn't believe how extreme you can hate, how extremely you can hate a sheep until you've talked to these people. But you can't even really blame them so much. It's the system that they're put through. And that system is propped up by the people who are buying the wool. So you don't have to buy wool. You can make things without wool. So just abnormalize the practice of buying wool. And abnormalize the idea of processing sheep in this commodified form. It makes perfect sense. There's a problem that needs to be solved, and even meat eaters understand that there's a problem that needs to be solved. They're just unwilling to go for the only solution to the problem. They keep having this deluded fancy that says that they can keep behaving exactly the way they're behaving, and somehow the world will resolve this problem on its own. And that's just never going to happen. And no matter how many times you try to tell these people that they have to change their behavior in order to expect any kind of change to occur, they don't want to listen.